In this case, we're gonna analyze an English 4 student who is 22 years old and 4 years ago studied at Fundose, where he completed the 10 levels. In this part, the student is gonna read a paragraph of the following article.
The sentence in English. For decades, linguists and grammarians have been debating in relation to what a sentence is. Many are the definitions that have been essayed until our days, loaded with corresponding linguistic and grammatical information of the trend in which they appear. These concepts of sentence have slightly changed from time to time in some cases. In others, the changes have been dramatically huge. It is not our job to go through such a long historical process, but it is important to establish that whatever the concept is of the sentence is, it will have to include at least 3 linguistic areas. These are syntax, semantics, and pragmatics.
We can conclude that the student was fluent, although when he said,
many are the definitions that have been essayed until our days, loaded.
We noticed that he wasn't sure about the sentence and he stopped a few times thinking about the right pronunciation. This affects the rhythm and the sequence. On the other hand, he used properly punctuation marks. For example,
in others, the changes have been dramatically huge,
where he took a pause to breathe. Also, the intonation was appropriate. Consider the level the student has a good reading because we could understood what he was saying. At the same time, has an excellent pronunciation, although he might practice to improve his fluency.
In the reading test, which is about the sentence in English, the English 4 student was able to analyze the text. He understood the meaning of the text. In the writing test, he wrote an essay of 10 sentences where he used correctly linking words to give sense to the essay, such as, also, following the author quote in the article, and finally. Also, he used the punctuation marks correctly in each sentence. He analyzed terms within the text, such as pragmatics, syntax, and semantics. However, he confused pragmatics and syntax. On the other hand, grammatically the essay is correct because he did not make mistakes on the text. The students used the most recent adjectives, for example, in the word, this word. The verbs in past are conjugated well, for example, involve and discuss. And he used different tenses in the essay, for example, present perfect, in the phrase, many authors have discussed.
Hey, mama, don't stress your mind. We coming home tonight. Hey, mom, we're gonna be alright. Dry those eyes. We'll be back in the morning when the sun starts to rise. So, mama, don't stress your mind. So, mama, don't stress your mind.
Hello.
Hello?
So, there are many questions that I'm going to tell you, okay?
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, the first question is, what is the song about?
Okay, I think the song is about I think the singer had a bad experience with a girlfriend, something like that, and he's saying to this new girl that he's always going to be by her side, that she doesn't have to worry about the things he did or he's gonna do.
Okay, you are wrong because the song is about a mother who is worried about her child because their friends will travel to another place, so she doesn't send him to travel. with them.
Okay.
So her son said to her, the son said to her, "Hey Mama, don't stress your mind. We are coming home tonight." Okay?
Okay. That's something.
Okay. And the second question is, what is the nationality of the artist?
Okay, based on his accent, I think he's from United States. I think he's American.
Yes, you are right. It's American. He's American. And the final question is, tell me a phrase of a song that you like.
Okay, I think I would like to say the same one that you say. That's the main phrase that I remember. It says, "Hey Mama, don't stress your mind. We're coming home tonight."
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
In the listening part, the English 4 student had to listen carefully a song which is called Mama and the other is Jonas Blue. Then we asked him some questions about that song and the first question was, "What is the song about?" And the student answered incorrectly because he said that the purpose of the singer was that he had a bad experience with a girl or a girlfriend and this girl is going to be by her side. So the student was confusing because the person who was worried for her child was his mother because she doesn't want him to travel to another place. Also, the second question was, "What is the nationality of the artist?" The student answered correctly because the singer is American. He's American. Finally, the third question was, "Tell me a phrase of the song that you liked." In this question, the student said, "Hey Mama, don't stress your mind. We're coming home tonight." In
In this part, the student was interviewed and we asked him 3 questions about the article. What is the article about?
It is about the concept of what a sentence is. I read, obviously, it is what a sentence is in English. And the main characteristics inside of this article are there is no solid concept about what a sentence is. Many authors discussed about this and they pointed out that there are 3 aspects that are the most important in this, which are syntax, semantics, and pragmatics.
What is pragmatics about?
It's the study of the language in a certain context and the usage of the language itself.
What would you change about the article?
I I I will change some words because they are a little bit complicated for those that are not familiarized with the the technical language.
We can notice that the pronunciation is really advanced. For being an English 4 student, his fluency has to improve. Also, he was repetitive in the first question, especially with the word this. Besides, he lost a few seconds to complete some sentences. Considering that the student understood the main idea of the test, could give a point of view about it, used linking words, made distinctions about different tenses, was able to correct himself and could recognize the advantages and disadvantages of the test, we conclude that the student, according to the Common European Framework of Reference of our language, his level group is B2. He easily could have a conversation with a native speaker about different subjects and understand the main idea.
Based on the present theories, second language acquisition, which pointed out that language learning is a conscious process. When we are learning, we know we are learning, and we are trying to learn. When we talk about rules and grammar, we are talking about learning. Perhaps, language is teachable and learnable. In other words, we are able to learn other language. The question theory is based on these aspects. Acquisition versus learning hypothesis. In this aspect, we are conscious of the rules of the language. Natural order hypothesis. This aspect is about the process of learning a second language. Monitor hypothesis. In this aspect, people have to be correcting their pronunciation, comprehension, and writing. The professor is in charge to correct the learner. There are two types of students, under-users and over-users. Under-users. These learners are unconscious of their mistakes and they do not be afraid to speak in front of the audience, even if they make mistakes. And over-users. These learners are polite and they are afraid of making mistakes in front of the audience, so they prefer to stay quiet. Input hypothesis. When learners are able to correct their own mistakes, also they use more complex structures. And the last aspect, affective filter hypothesis. This aspect is about the motivation and attitude of the learner. In this case, we compare the results with the present theory, and the conclusion was: the English for a student is in process of learning English as a second language. This means that he is in the natural order hypothesis. During the reading, he asked us about the pronunciation and writing of some words, so we were his monitor. Also, he is an overuser student because he is afraid of making mistakes when he speaks. He is able to correct himself, and he used complex structures. He is conscious about his own mistakes, so he corrects them immediately. Finally, he is motivated and he has a good attitude and confidence.
In this case, we compared the results with the question theory, and the conclusion was: the English for a student is an overuser because he was afraid of making mistakes in front of us. When we asked him some questions, he was a little bit nervous. Monitor hypothesis. Also, he used complex structures, but he didn't speak fluently. He was able to use right sentence, and when he made a mistake, he corrected their own mistakes. Input hypothesis. Finally, the English for a student was motivated and paying attention to us because he told us that he wanted to participate in this affective filter hypothesis.